Oh, hello there. You've just caught me deleting the GB News app from my phone. And why? Because that station has just effectively cancelled its biggest draw, Mark Steyn. What a mistake the so-called beacon of free speech, GB News, has just made. After 2 heart attacks, the one man who could pull the viewers in, whatever the opposition were doing, was about to make a comeback to the 8 p.m. slot when GB News bosses effectively pulled the plug on him. And it all revolves around them wanting to change Steyn's contract to make him fully financially liable to Ofcom for any of their rules he breaks. Ofcom, with its links to the World Economic Forum, which I'll come on to in a moment. Now you can hear all that contract stuff from the man himself, as he published a video on it. But at the heart of the matter, we have a presenter who told us the truth as he saw it, with no holds barred. But in doing so, he obviously trod on the toes of the powerful, and so attracted the wrath of Ofcom. And GB News, that had been basking in the success of the Mark Steyn show, suddenly realised that this might bring unwanted attention. It seems they want the views that controversy brings, but none of the cost. So, says Steyn, they placed onerous conditions on him in a new contract. And Steyn refused to participate further. So the channel that advertises itself as pushing the envelope and covering the topics and asking the questions that no one else will, has climbed into the envelope and sealed it behind them. And how long will it be before we no longer hear from GB News about the English Channel red carpet and the Home Office use of hotels? Or of certain procedures and the weekly figures indicating we were not told the whole truth? Will net zero and C40 cities start to be supported by GB News and wokeness celebrated by them as they bow to Ofcom specialist training? Will their presenters soon be attending Davos and be alongside the Labour leader Keir Starmer and gushing with him about the good work the WEF does? But GB News executives may find more advertisers being comfortable with appearing on their channel, so more dosh coming in. But the big question is, how many people will be left watching what could end up as a BBC ITV Sky clone? A mere shadow of its previous, more hard-hitting self. Now, as some have pointed out, the only defence that GB News has is that they are regulated by Ofcom and have to follow the broadcast regulator's rules. But as far as I can see, Steyn has never incited anything or broken any laws, or else he would have been arrested and imprisoned. So his crimes must have been breaches of restrictions placed on the freedom of expression. Restrictions imposed by either our government or imposed by Ofcom itself, and surely neither of those is acceptable. His crimes involved asking questions that needed to be asked and raising subjects that needed to be raised. But as ever with freedom of expression issues, there are always vested interests that want it shut down. They want to control the agenda. They want to control what you see and hear. Whether it be politicians or corporate executives, their access to power and money hinges on how they shape the narrative. And the World Economic Forum is providing the vehicle to do just that. Yes, the WEF has a programme called the Global Principles on Digital Safety. Global Principles. Have you ever voted on those yet? And these global principles have been developed to define how human rights should be translated in the digital world. I'll ask again, have you voted for them? And the coalition working group for these global principles includes the likes of Microsoft, Meta, Amazon, the United Nations Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, the owners of the platform you are watching this on, and Ofcom UK, amongst others, with the boss of Ofcom attending the last big WEF conference in Davos. Now, people mistakenly think that Ofcom is for mainstream media only, but it is extending its tentacles. And you may well not know this, but if you start or operate a video sharing platform in the UK, you must self-declare to Ofcom and then you are regulated. And Ofcom has a list of 20 of these video sharing platforms, and some of them might surprise you. BitChute, Brand New Tube, Snapchat, TikTok, Twitch, and Vimeo. And they must all comply with rules to protect us from harmful content. And part of the WEF vision of its principles is to encourage positive behaviours and actions across the digital ecosystem. That means control, dear viewer. And part of that is to define a box of knowledge and concepts that you will be allowed to gain access to. And that's the safe stuff as defined by our betters, while they sit outside the box and dictate what we're allowed to safely see and hear, and what we're allowed to question and argue against. And it looks like GB News could become a part of that. And now over to Richard.
Hello, wonderful to see you. I'll start again. So, firstly, here are my thoughts on Mark Steyn quitting GB News. And yes, it is rather cold here. To a mere simpleton like myself, Mark Steyn's exit from GB News looks like a case of, well, suspiciously I should say, like a case of constructive dismissal, wouldn't you say? I mean, it was only a few days ago that Mark, via his own YouTube channel, was announcing his grand return to GB News. But sadly, that is no longer the case. And I fear this is the beginning of the end for GB News. For many of us, the only reason we tuned in to GB News was to watch people like Mark Steyn, Neil Oliver, and a bit of Lawrence Fox, and there are one or two other good presenters. Don't get me wrong, there are some good presenters there. I mean, but a lot of it is it's compared to the BBC or compared to ITV. They are good presenters. But yeah, Patrick Christie, you know, he's good. Yeah, good. However, I think I'd rather just watch my own favourite selection of YouTubers. And by looking at the comments on social media, it appears as if I am not the only one thinking this. So all I can say is, GB News, you need to eat some humble pie and bring back the Steyn. Otherwise, it'll start hemorrhaging, viewers and possibly presenters. That could be the end. And it would be a great shame because, you know, compared to the other news channels, it's been fantastic. And now for something completely different. So, the Church of England may have to change God's gender. To be more inclusive, of course. It's fantastic. I'm sorry, but this is a step too far because in the Bible, God quite clearly identifies as male. Yes, as in our Father. That might give it away a bit. There are no feminine references that I know of to God in the Bible. I've heard a few bits of speculation, but no, it's just misinterpretation. I mean, it just says that God is male. How that works, I don't know, but it's not open for speculation within the biblical context. So why are they changing it? What is the need to change God's gender? I mean, I wouldn't want to be the person deciding to do this. You know, there could be some pretty hefty eternal consequences for those people, if you believe, that is. Otherwise, you don't care, do you? But it makes you wonder, what sort of people would be making such decisions within the church? I mean, what is their stand-in with God? Okay, again, if you don't believe, you don't believe. It's an awkward video to make. Very awkward subject to address, or to approach, I should say. Anything that is religion-based or Christian-based, you can't do it because a lot of people just don't believe. That's fine. That's your decision, possibly. I mean, but what's interesting is that I don't see it happening with a certain other major religion. Can you imagine if they tried to say that the god of that religion would have to change its gender? Oh, that'll go down well. Oh, I'd love to see that. Anyway, sorry. 5:45:45. I'll see you tomorrow at 5:45.